Hi guys! Many of you have commented in anticipation of how this chapter would go, so I'm excited to give it to you. After starting a new semester, recovering from a cold, and rewatching all of the USJ incident episodes, only to completely rewrite the original plot, here we go. You bounced with excitement in your bus seat. "Chill, Aiko," Jiro said, eyes closed as she leaned back to nap. "I can't," you whispered excitedly. "We're going to the USJ, which I've heard about forever from Dad and Mike." You grinned cheekily and shrugged. Everyone was roasting Bakugo for being hot-headed, and Deku looked confused and dazed by the turn of events. You laughed at his expression. When everyone unloaded from the bus, you finally got to enter the big domed structure of the USJ. You bounced excitedly on the balls of your feet, earning another amused eye roll from Jiro. 13, a hero in some sort of spacesuit, was giving you all an orientation for the rescue training. Aizawa was looking around tiredly, frowning. Your attention faded away from the orientation and focused on him. What was he restless about? You vaguely remembered him saying that All Might was supposed to sub for Mike today, but All Might wasn't here. No wonder Aizawa looked irritated. After a brief conversation with 13, Aizawa announced that they would start the rescue training. As he was speaking, you heard something. A staticky sound, super high-pitched, undetectable to most ears. Your cat ears pricked towards it and your eyes widened slightly. Aizawa noticed immediately, and turned to check on what you were sensing. As you watched, a dark plasma swirled in the air, expanding, until a hand reached through. Mike's point of view. Mike was in the teacher's lounge, lounging. Nezu was trying to entice him to drink tea. "Ha! I don't drink that plant water," Mike scoffed. "Now if you had soda, maybe." He looked at Nezu with childish hopefulness. Nezu shook his head disapprovingly. "You'll never keep your coat healthy with sugary beverages." "My coat will stay plenty healthy," Mike assured. "I get it dry cleaned every month." All Might entered the room, and immediately deflated into his weak form. Mike stared, aghast, then stood up so fast that his sunglasses went askew. "Toshinori! I thought you were going to sub for me at the USJ rescue training today." "Sorry, Yamada." All Might looked chastened. "I'll be over in just a bit." Nezu tapped the paper he was reading, showing All Might several stops to do hero work on his way to UA. "We need you to prioritize the students, All Might. You have limited stamina, and you're overworking yourself." "No," All Might laughed. "I'll be fine." He popped into his muscle form. "Yeah, right," Mike said sarcastically, noting the steam coming off of him already. A moment later, All Might poofed back into weak form. While Nezu proceeded to give All Might a lecture, Mike called Shota to see if he needed help. He'd have to miss his dentist appointment if he helped at the USJ, but he felt bad that his sub couldn't make it. The call went straight to voicemail. Weird. He tried calling 13. Same result. Mike frowned. "Toshinori, how soon can you go to the USJ? I think something's wrong." The hand that came through the plasma was followed by the rest of the person, with a hand covering his face. More oddly dressed figures emerged from more plasma portals, filling the courtyard at the bottom of the stairs. Aizawa stood in a tense fighting stance between his students and the emerging intruders. "So," Kaminari asked, confused, "has the rescue training already started? Who are they?" He started forward. "Stay back!" The students all flinched at the harshness in Aizawa's voice. "Those are villains." He was ready to fight. You could see it in his stance and the way he readied his scarf. There were so many. "Stay here with 13. Send for help," Aizawa continued as he placed his goggles over his eyes. "But, Mr. Aizawa," Deku protested, "there's too many for you to take on alone. Your fighting style is best in one-on-one battles and stealth attacks. It's not meant for attacking large groups." "Deku!" You flashed a confident grin at the worried boy. "Don't worry. Dad can handle anything." Deku looked torn. Aizawa glanced dryly at the two of you. "No good hero only has one trick," he assured. And with that, he leapt down the stairs into the fray. Deku watched worriedly, but Aizawa was shockingly effective, moving with almost inhuman speed, and using quick thinking to take down villains one by one. Deku's mouth parted in amazement. For a moment, he forgot his fear, and was filled with wonder at his teacher's skill. "So this is how a pro-hero fights," he thought. The rest of the class was trying to convince Ida to run for help since he was the fastest, and the portal plasma creature started battling with 13 to get at the students. The plasma portal villain used 13's quirk against himself. Suit torn, the space hero collapsed forward and didn't move. You gritted your teeth in frustration. You continued to hear the high-pitched staticky sound coming from the portal plasma stuff. It was messing with your focus. "Run, Ida!" You shoved the boy impatiently. "We're counting on you!" That seemed to galvanize him into action. You turned your attention to covering for him. Bakugo and Kiri were on the same page. It took all three of you to keep Ida safe. Bakugo's explosions, Kirishima's brazen close-quarter charges, your razor-sharp claws slashing through the plasma every time it reached for Ida. The creature bubbled and darkened in frustration as Ida vanished out the door. Plasma swirled around all of you in a huge dome, and then you were falling. Someone pulled you against them as you fell, and then you opened your eyes to find yourself sprawled on top of Bakugo, whose arm was wrapped firmly around your waist. What?" you gasped. His eyes opened hazily. "Cat ears?" he seemed to be asking himself. And then his eyes widened as reality sank in, and he roughly threw you aside. "I'm not a freaking pillow!" he yelled, hands sparking. You dusted yourself off disdainfully, internally furious at his audacity to pull you after him and then act like it was your fault. A familiar voice groaned on the floor. "Kiri?" you asked, startled. Kirishima sat up, then grinned tiredly. "Oh, hey, Aiko. Where are the others? Where's the villain?" He suddenly hardened his hands, looking alert. You looked around. You were in a building. "I think we got split up, but we're not alone." You slammed your foot backwards into the face of a nearly invisible villain who had been trying to sneak up. It was becoming a signature move of yours. You smiled toothily. "Wow, nice, Aiko," Kiri complimented, scanning the room for more villains. "Don't act like I'm not here, weird hair!" Bakugo sparked. "So immature," you muttered. "Sorry, man," Kiri was saying, unworried. The door slammed open, and a crowd of tough-looking villains burst into the room and fanned out to surround the three of you. Bakugo smiled wickedly, and Kirishima hardened his hands. You just stood nonchalantly, which seemed to confuse the villains. They stared at the three of you, deciding how to attack. They were faced with a murderous-eyed explosion boy, a shark-toothed boy with blade arms, and a girl standing casually, as though she didn't know how to fight. Naturally, they went for you first. That was a mistake. You'd found that for your fighting style, it was best to stay loose, rather than adopting a fighting stance. The first attacker didn't know what had hit him, before he was crashing backwards through the glass window. He caught a glimpse of your glowing amber eyes as he hung briefly amid the sparkling glass, before falling. The rest of the villains hesitated, unnerved. You flashed them a cute smile. "Come at us," you taunted. The villains gathered strength and attacked all together. "Die!" Bakugo screamed, hands bursting with explosive flashes. The three of you ended up fighting back to back, covering each other. You couldn't hear anything except for Bakugo's explosions and murderous yells, but you saw Kiri punching a villain beside you, as you focused on your own opponents. Your moves came automatically. These villains weren't skilled. Taking them down required no thought, only reflexive fighting. Panting lightly, the three of you stared at the room full of fallen villains. Bakugo pulled up one of the unconscious villains by the collar, sneering down at him. "Is this all of them? They're so weak." So Bakugo had noticed too. "All right," Kiri panted. "Let's hurry up and go save the others. If we're here, then everyone else should be inside the USJ too. I'm worried about the guys with less offensive ability." "If you want to go, then go by yourself. I'm gonna kill that warp gate." "Huh? You're gonna act childish at a time like this? Besides, that guy's attacks are—" "Shut up! The gate monster is the enemy's way in and out. I'm gonna cut off their gateway route for when the time comes. It's not like we don't have a way to fight the fog. Besides, if these small fry are the ones assigned to us, everyone else will be fine, right?" "Were you always so calm and rational? I thought you were more like, die, die, die." "I'm always calm and rational, you spiky-haired punk!" "Oh yeah, that's more like it." "Tch, then go if you want to." "Wait, believing in our friends, that's real manly, Bakugo." He slammed his hardened fists together. "I'll follow you. Are you with us, Aiko?" He glanced around, confused. "Huh? Where'd she go?" Bakugo cursed under his breath. "Stupid cat ears." He started for the door. "Bakugo, she's our friend. We need to find her." "She went to fight the warp gate." "How do you know?" Kiri demanded. "I just do. Shh." What he didn't explain was that he'd seen a spark of an idea in your eyes as soon as the portal villain was mentioned. That was the last moment he remembered you being in the room. Your point of view. Wind ruffled your hair as you sprinted fluidly through the ruins. You did have an idea. If you could trick the dark purple plasma villain into opening the way to their base, you could find out who was giving them orders. You skidded to a halt as you reached the water separating you from the central plaza. Your superhuman eyes took in the details of the scene in the distance. "No," you whispered. All plans vanished from your mind. You could see Aizawa's goggles lying on the ground, his dark hair fanning out amid the cracked cement, the blood pooling under him. You forgot how to breathe. As you watched, the monstrous creature pulled him up slowly, painstakingly, and slammed his face into the ground, spreading spiderweb cracks further out. Your blood went hot, then cold. You knew you were losing control, breathing too fast, but you didn't care. Your body moved without thinking, charging into the water that separated you from the plaza, running towards Dad. Deku's point of view. He had been impressed by Aizawa's ability to handle overwhelming numbers of villains, but now all he felt was shock and horror at what was happening to their teacher. Asui and Mineta shivered in the water beside him. Deku was doing what Deku did best, analyzing. The villains had sent all the rest of their forces at Aizawa to observe how he fought and to tire him out before attacking him with their biggest weapon. It was brutal to their weaker members, sending them against Aizawa, but it had worked. "Deku?" Asui whispered, trying to get his attention. The Warp Gate villain materialized in the air, beside the villain covered in hands. "Tomura Shigaraki," he addressed the hands villain. "Kurogiri," responded Shigaraki. "Did you kill 13? "I put 13 out of action, but there were students I was unable to disperse. One of them escaped the USJ," responded Kurogiri, dark mist swirling around him. "Deku," Asui hissed more urgently. He tore his attention away from analyzing. "What is it, Sue?" "Aiko's coming." Sue pointed. Past the far side of the plaza, a cat-eared girl was cutting through the water. Deku's eyes widened in fear. On the plaza, Shigaraki looked down in frustration, scratching at his neck. His scratching intensified as he grew more angry. "Kurogiri, if you weren't a Warp Gate, I would have crushed you to pieces for allowing a student to run for help." He suddenly calmed. "We can't win against dozens of pros. It's game over. But before we leave..." He turned, bright red eyes fixing on the three of them lurking at the water. "Let's smash some of All Might's pride as the symbol of peace by killing a student or two." Everything seemed to happen at once. On the far side of the plaza, you climbed out of the water, claws extended and eyes glowing with every emotion at the scene before you. Shigaraki blazed forward in a burst of speed, hand closing over Asui's face. Deku's breath caught, sure that Shigaraki had been too fast for any of them. But Shigaraki hadn't hurt Asui. Deku stared in confusion as the villain's hand hovered over the shocked girl's face. "Tch," sighed Shigaraki. He turned to look over his shoulder. "You really are so cool, Eraserhead." Even as the Nomu was pulling Aizawa tremblingly, painstakingly back, Aizawa's bloodshot eyes remained fixed on Shigaraki, focused despite the pain. It gave Deku just enough time to push Asui away from the villain. He was vaguely aware of Aiko charging the Nomu. Your point of view. You were already running towards the Nomu. You threw your entire weight into a double-footed kick as it started to push Aizawa down again. The kick hit squarely on the shoulder, sending it reeling back and neutralizing its attempt to smash him into the cement. It stumbled back a step, and Deku appeared to land a punch on it. It turned its attention to him. "Aiko?" Aizawa's hazy gaze sharpened in recognition. He spoke through gritted teeth. "Get out of here." "Not a chance," you hissed. "Kurogiri!" Shigaraki yelled irritably. "Take care of that girl!" You tried to dodge, but a ring of dark purple mist twined around you. Kurogiri pulled you into the air and swung you back towards him. "No!" you screamed, fighting to get back towards Aizawa. Aizawa was trying, still trying, blast him, to move, to save you. He struggled to his feet without the use of his broken arms, his face a mask of focus, hair floating as he glared up at Kurogiri with glowing red eyes. The mist pinned your arms to your sides, and your legs swung helplessly. Aizawa staggered forward and kicked out at Kurogiri. His foot connected with the armored part at Kurogiri's center, with startling force, making Kurogiri loosen his hold for a moment. But then the Nomu grabbed Aizawa from behind and threw him on the ground again. "No!" you gasped. Kurogiri's constricting grip forced your breathing to become shallow. Your vision started to go dark around the edges. Present Mike's point of view. Mike ran to the USJ. He couldn't wait around for All Might to regain his strength, or for Nezu to rally the other teachers. He was already failing at the one thing he'd sworn he'd never fail at again. Once again, he wasn't there for Aizawa. "Please," he thought, legs burning from his continuous sprint. "Please don't let it be too late. Aizawa will snap before he can lose even a single student, and especially with Aiko here, he'll go to any lengths." He skidded to a stop, staring down the stairs at the plaza. What he saw enraged him more than anything he'd ever seen. He threw back his head and let his voice go at full power, a simple scream of "Yeah!" The sound waves crashed over dozens of villains between him and Aizawa, making them fall to the ground with expressions of pain, cradling their heads. It made Shigaraki flinch back, and caused Kurogiri to turn and look, while still holding Aizawa's daughter in an iron grip. The sound continued onward, radiating throughout the USJ. Now everyone knew that reinforcements were coming. But Shigaraki was the first to recover. He could see that it was just one hero, one bravely foolish hero, who was charging directly at them, regardless of the fact that he was outnumbered and out of his league. Scratching his neck irritably, Shigaraki ordered Kurogiri to kill the newcomer. Mike pounded towards them, unflinching. He reached the plaza and ran to close the distance between him and the villains. "What are you waiting for?" Shigaraki snapped. "Kill him!" Kurogiri began reaching for him, but his lightning-bolt eyes seemed to be fizzing like a faulty fluorescent light, glitching and resetting. He looked between Mike, running towards him, to Aizawa, trying to get up again, to the girl in his misty hold. His glitching and fizzing grew more rapid, with agitation. Mike used the villain's hesitation to his advantage, sprinting under a misty tendril to reach Aizawa. Your point of view. You were vaguely aware of Mike's weaponized voice attack, and that Mike was here now. And that Kurogiri was acting odd. His grip was loosening slightly, making it easier to stay conscious. His lightning-bright eyes examined you, glitching and resetting. "Cat," Kurogiri said, then looked towards Aizawa. The Nomu grabbed Aizawa again, preparing to slam him into the cement. Mike was trying to intervene, but he was locked in a fight with Shigaraki. The glitching and fizzing of the plasma intensified, but you didn't notice because tears were blurring your vision so much. The Nomu pulled Aizawa up the final trembling inches. "We were going to save everyone," Kurogiri muttered, glitching and fizzing more rapidly. "Starting with a single cat." Aizawa's eyes widened. At the last word, you found yourself falling, darkness all around you. The dark mist expanded to fill the plaza, then abruptly drew in again, leaving a stunned Kurogiri on the ground. Mike was trying desperately to finish his fight with Shigaraki and come to your aid. And Aizawa lay face down amid the freshly shattered cement. You'd landed only a couple meters away from him. You crawled over. You brushed a strand of dark hair away from his deathly pale face. How could this have happened? Aizawa was invincible, wasn't he? No. You couldn't pretend anymore. He was human. Nothing more than a self-sacrificing, amazing, irrational human. He'd wanted you to think he was invincible, so that in situations like this, you'd run when he told you to. And it had worked. Your hands clenched into fists, tears coming faster, but a new emotion was rising within you. Anger. He shouldn't have let you think he could handle anything. He should have let you fight with him. "I am here," boomed a familiar voice. Deku and several other students exclaimed in joy and relief. All Might was there in a moment, lifting Aizawa gingerly. "Careful," you hissed, standing dizzily. All Might's expression was filled with pain and anger as he stared at Eraserhead's face. He looked down at you with deep concern. "I'm sorry, young Aizawa." His voice choked with emotion. "I should have been here." "Later," you snapped. You'd never been in a worse mood. "Right," All Might said grimly. He seemed to ricochet around the plaza and was instantly back with Mike, Deku, Asui, and Mineta. His power and speed was on another level. You seriously doubted that even the Nomu had any chance. All Might's presence had turned the tide of the battle. "Everyone, go to the entrance! I'm leaving Aizawa to you." Mike quickly offered to carry Aizawa, but Deku pointed out that there were students in other areas of the USJ, that he needed to help while All Might fought the Nomu. Mike seemed torn as he headed to the weather zone. "I'll catch up," he promised. Deku managed to drape Aizawa over his back. Aizawa was a lot taller than him, though, so Mineta had to help by lifting Aizawa's feet. You helped get him into position anxiously. Deku was trying to warn All Might about the Nomu, but the symbol of peace didn't seem concerned. He blasted away at super speed. Deku kept glancing back. It was slowing the already painfully slow transportation of Aizawa. "Stop moving again and I'll lose it," you growled. Deku bit his lip guiltily, but his eyes locked again on the fight below. He suddenly passed Aizawa to Asui and ran back, yelling something about All Might needing to live so he could teach him. Idiot, you thought, as though All Might was in any danger. Suddenly, Bakugo blasted into view, flying through the air with explosive bursts, while Kiri ran behind. Bakugo landed clumsily, scowling at the sight of Aizawa's injuries and your dark expression. "That's no way to carry someone," he growled. Kiri caught up a moment later, and together they took Aizawa from Sue and Mineta, carrying him in a much more ideal position for an injured person. They moved a lot faster, too, as though he weighed nothing. "Thanks, and hurry," you said shortly. Bakugo, for once, didn't react angrily at being ordered. He simply nodded, rushing off in a coordinated jog. Feeling surreal, you turned and surveyed the fight below. All Might was bleeding. Did Deku know something you didn't? But still, he was pulling ahead, sending rapid punches at the Nomu. The Nomu went flying in a final devastating blow. You watched its path as it crashed through the domed ceiling, far away into the sky. The monster that had broken Aizawa, All Might made it look like a mere punching bag. How had you never noticed that Aizawa wasn't invincible? Pros flooded into the USJ around you, the reinforcements that Nezu had brought. Ida stood proudly with them. They ran past you, yelling and launching into attacks. You watched as Shigaraki, wounded by shots from Snipe, made his escape into the portal, and the high-pitched, misty, staticky sound finally vanished. The fight was over, but the shadow of it hung over all of them. Mike ran towards you, back from the weather zone with Tokoyami and Koda. The concern in his green eyes made you want to weep. And then he was holding you tight and you were crying into his shoulder like a baby. Mike rested his chin on your head, gazing out at the place where Aizawa had been beaten. His arms unconsciously tightened around you. Meanwhile, back in the main school building, a teen with a shock of violet hair leaned idly against the wall, frowning. His purple irises glared at students walking by. Everyone was acting like everything was normal. But what kind of emergency would it take for Nezu to summon all the heroes over the intercom? He tensed, sensing something different in the air. 2 boys from the hero course came charging down the hall a minute later, carrying a dark-clothed figure. Shinso's blood went cold. No. Except it was Eraserhead. Students scurried out of their way, but Shinso blocked them. "Out of my way, punk!" snarled the ash blonde. "Recovery girl is that way." Shinso pointed in a different direction. "She'll be headed from 1C. I just saw her." The ash blonde narrowed his eyes. "If you're wrong, you'll regret it." He sent an explosive blast at Shinso, smashing him into the lockers. Shinso glared after them as they ran off in the direction he'd pointed. So that was the kind of classmate Aiko had to deal with. He smiled slightly, eyes hard. Thanks for listening and making it this far. I can't wait to hear your reactions and observations. Awesome art, including the thumbnail, by Gmark. Instagram linked below. I hope you all have a wonderful day and week. Part 17, coming as soon as I can get it ready. He threw back his head and let his voice go at full power. Yeah! Okay, let's try that again. A simple scream of, yeah! Okay, I can see how that voice actor got vocal strain. A simple scream of, yeah!